our PowerPoint got a little bit off when we pulled it up, so you can't see my name, but my name is Jessica Ryback.
My name is Cecilia Bonson,
And our topic is deaf drama and theater.
and we're going to talk a little bit about origins of deaf drama and theater, about some theaters that are pretty big in it, some plays, and then some actors, and then how it all relates to deaf history.
Okay, so we're going to begin with the origins of deaf plays. They began in the early 1900s, and they were really established as just one of many deaf clubs going on at the time. So it just began in the same way as the other ones, just a way to socialize, have fun, build community, just, share interests with other people. And then it really developed into a way to share their culture and language with, young deaf children and even hearing people. And then we're going to talk about a few of the different theater companies, now that we have a tiny bit of background.
So the first really big theater for the deaf is National Theater for the Deaf, began in the 1950s, founded by Dr. Edna Levine, which is a deaf psychologist, Arthur Penn, which is a director of The Miracle Worker, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and then Anne Pancroft, which was also an actress in The Miracle Worker, and David Hayes. They decided their purpose was to bring deaf theater to a broader audience. And then in 1965, they played their first performance in Milton, Connecticut, and then they went on to the first national tour, which was like a really big deal for them. 30 years later, NTD held a national worldwide deaf theater conference, which is more like of a conference that actors and playwrights and deaf directors came together, talk about techniques for deaf theater, talk about the community and how they can bring it to a bigger audience. They talk about just bringing to light the deaf theater and drama. So now Jessica will talk about Little Theater of the Deaf.
Now, the Little Theater of the Deaf, it was actually sort of an offshoot of the National Theater for the Deaf. It's kind of a way that they, gave back to the community and again incorporated young children into it. So of course they wanted to capture a very young audience. So instead of doing, all of the big plays and dramas, they signed stories and poems and popular children's tales. They even were able to make appearances on the very popular children's show Sesame Street, which is a very big deal because this could be any child's first experience with deaf culture. And it's good to be able to have that young, to be able to have people, people are really afraid of what they don't know. So to be able to give that them when they're young, it really helps bridge the two communities together. And they actually combined sight, hearing, and imagination into every performance. So it really, because they did involve hearing, it really was something for everyone. And just a very visual experience in general.
Okay, now I will talk about the Fairmont Theater for the Deaf. It's now actually called the Cleveland Side Stage Theater. It founded in 1975. It was funded by a deaf actor who has set plays that he wanted them to be translated into ASL. Their goal to this day is to provide artistic theater for both deaf and hearing people, and their plays are both deaf and hearing people who are performing and back on the background stage who set the lighting and whatnot. They have won many awards. They have won awards, local Emmy Awards, and they're the first recipient of the Ohio Governor's Award of the Arts Outreach Program.
Now I'm going to highlight the Deaf West Theater, and it was actually founded in 1991. It's a big theater for the deaf and hard of hearing people together. So that's what made them especially unique. They produced over 40 plays, 4 musicals, and they were even nominated for a Tony Award. So even though they're one of the fairly newer theater companies, they're very accomplished, as you can see already. In addition, they also didn't only have deaf and hard of hearing actors, they have deaf and hearing production people, and all of their plays were translated into ASL. Another way that they gave back to the community, just as the National Theater for the Deaf did, is that they did in-school workshops where they had the deaf artists serve as mentors and educators to all the students. They kind of had more of a story time sessions and things of that nature. So of course this would be a meaningful experience for anyone, same as Little Theater for the Deaf.
And And then like going back to this slide, you can see a ticket for the National Theater for the Deaf. And then where she was talking about just now, the in-school programs, there's teachers, they're signing stories in that gray corner, that gray picture up there. And then you also see the Deaf West Theater, and then the little play right there as well. Some little pictures. And then I will also talk about some deaf plays. Deaf plays don't have to be just stories that are translated to ASL. They can be stories about deaf people themselves and their trials and tribulations. One of the big ones I want to talk about is My Third Eye. My Third Eye is a groundbreaking play. It was about deaf people and their trials and tribulations growing up in English society. And I just want to show you a clip, snippet of one. We just passed commercial. Yeah. Uh-oh. Let's see the captions. Yeah, let's go to captions. So as you can see, what's going on here is that there's a teacher and she's trying to teach the student how to say pakate with like feeling of their face and their vocals. And every time she says it wrong, she gets her face put in a bucket of water and basically like kind of like drowning in it. So it's very traumatizing for her. And so this is just a play about those kind of stories. They use their imaginations to, and it's a really great example of one. It's a great way to pass down deaf history to our deaf culture to people from generation to generation. It's very creative. This is, on a side note, this is the first play from the National Theater of Deaf that was directed by a deaf director as well. And then we're also going to talk about The American Worker, which most of you know it's that movie with Helen Keller. This originally was a play, so it brought deaf actors and hearing actors together. And so the actress that played Helen Keller was actually deaf. And what's significant about when this play first came out, on the actual stage, they like put people on each corner of the theater who were ASL interpreters / actors. And whenever there was a hearing part in this show, they would translate it so it was very accessible to everyone. And yeah.
Now we wanted to highlight some some popular deaf actors. So these are the people that actually made this culture and language accessible to everyone. The first person we're going to talk about is Phyllis Frelich. And as Jill mentioned before in class, she was in the movie Love is Never Silent. She played the mother, so you can all picture what she looks like. She was also in the original Broadway production of Children of a Lesser God. So she's really a part of that history of theater, being in the original production. And that performance actually won her a Best Actress Tony Award in 1980. A tiny bit of background on her. She was actually born to deaf parents who had 9 other deaf children. So she was very immersed in the deaf community in her own household even. And the second person that we are going to talk about is Bernard Bragg. And obviously he's the man right there. He explains in his documentary Through Deaf Eyes how he was worried for his future. Growing up in the Great Depression, obviously he was worried about having a job and really how is he going to be able to live. So he didn't really know when he joined the National Theater for the Deaf that he'd actually have a true career and how much he would do for a deaf drama, especially getting in, so early into it. He was also in My Third Eye, which not only was he in it, it was actually about him and his work. And that also won him a Tony in Theatrical Excellence in 1977. And to this day, he's actually still one of the most renowned deaf actors.
Excuse me. I also want to talk about, during our research, we came across this article called From Liberating Ants to Flying Over Cuckoo's Nest by Connolly, which he is himself a deaf actor. He explains how deaf people in general are just natural actors. They can mimic somebody from just seeing them briefly, which just makes sense because language is visual. Why not fill up a stage with that language? But yeah, so how does this all relate to deaf history? When this first all started, people did not want to sign in front of others. They were ridiculed. They saw it as an embarrassment. If they did do deaf clubs, it was only for deaf people, only for deaf audiences, only in ASL. So it's definitely grown into a much bigger thing, which for both deaf and hearing, they bring those two together, and it just changes. It just shows a change in attitudes now, and it's also a way to bring deaf culture and history to a broader audience. And so yeah, and so now we're going to talk about our opinions.
So, through the research, I actually, before I did the research, I had no idea about anything about deaf theater. I've always been a supporter of theater and drama. I was always in the plays, saw many other ones, professional productions, but I really didn't know there were any popular productions that weren't in English. So I was very shocked and surprised by that. It really got me interested. And as she was saying, that through all of this, it really gave, it wasn't something to be hidden anymore. It was all celebrated. So it really probably helped, I would assume, bring deaf pride into being. And what I largely gathered from our research, that it really became a way to educate the hearing world. Now, before it was just a thing for just deaf people. Now it's really about including everyone and getting everyone involved.
So, same thing as Jessica, I really didn't know there was such a thing as deaf theater and drama. I think it's an amazing thing. It was a great surprise to me. And it makes sense though, because ASL is such a visual language. You would think that it would always be a popular thing for others to have, and it's just a great way for education, entertainment, and it's just a great way to bring deaf and hearing worlds together in that visual art way.
Well, we're so excited that you guys came today, and we hope you guys really enjoyed our presentation, and we'd like to open up to any questions.
Yeah.
Any questions for these two? The National Theater for the Deaf has been around since the 1960s, and it was actually designed for a hearing audience, not for a deaf audience. And why